Welcome to Wayne's World and Kelly Video Podcast. Good to see you again, Mr. Kuhn.
Lovely to see you, sir. Wait, what hat you got on there today?
I have the Terminator clip hat on. I appreciate you noticing. Thank you very much.
I tell you what, that is incredible. I love that. I noticed something else. I noticed there's another person here, and that looks like Robert Lozano. And to many people in South Florida, he's very well known. He's called the Asbestos Man. There's very few people on the planet that know more about asbestos in 2022 than Robert. And so we invited him on the show to talk about it. Before, let's talk about our sponsors. We are talking about the clip, the Terminator, LGC, and backed by popular demand. One of my biggest competitors, M2E sponsoring, and forget the other company. So Robert, we're going to welcome you to the show. And my whole goal is just to catch you off guard completely. But Robert, before we get started about asbestos, look at that, huh?
Oh, Kelly, I am honored. That is a special treat that you have there.
Robert and I were talking earlier. I'm a minimalist, and I think we should do a show about how I became a minimalist about, I don't know, started it 7 or so years ago. I completed it about 4 years ago, but I have very few possessions. One would be my Beetle display back here. I've got my nice desk from Trump Plaza in New York, but I have this, and this was a gift Robert gave to me, and it's an advertising asbestos on products as a good thing. So, Robert, can you tell us a few minutes about why asbestos maybe changed a little bit?
Well, Kelly, asbestos itself hasn't changed. It's been around since millennia. A lot of people have a misconception about what it is, where it comes from, and how does it affect our lives. But we've been using it in this country for well over 200 years. And it is a mineral. It comes out of the ground. They've been using it on an industrial scale. They put it in well over 19,000 different products. The aviation industry, the commercial industry, the marine industry, the military used it in quite a bit of applications. Even NASA used it when they send, those lovely heroes to the moon and back. So, but it was mined on an industrial scale. And as you mentioned, that article that I had given you was from the 1920s. And asbestos has been used quite frequently then. I have an amazing collection of asbestos materials that I've collected over the years. And
let me interrupt you for a second, because I've got another collection of asbestos. You ready for this?
No. Oh my, Kelly, what a glorious sight.
My
you warm my heart.
1950s condo with the original asbestos ceiling, which is deemed safe by Robert. And unless I do anything to mess with it, we're safe. But what happens if I did disrupt it?
Well, Kelly, we definitely want to avoid that at all costs. The laws are quite clear that if asbestos, if it's in good shape and left alone and is not going to be disturbed, you can just leave it in place, just like your ceiling is in great shape, and you're going to hopefully live a long life because of it being in good condition. But should it need to be removed because it's impacted by a renovation or a demolition, then it must be removed by a licensed contractor. And that's kind of the interesting about it, is that people don't think that it's still out there. And if they do hear about asbestos, it's on those late night commercials. I hope I get the jingle right. If you were a loved one has mesothelioma, you may be entitled to financial compensation.
And that's a word that I cannot say. I'm impressed every time that you can say that. And is English a second language for you?
Actually, Spanish is a second language. I'm originally from Southern California, but whereas this light complexion may give the appearance of I'm one culture, I am of another. So, but yeah, I speak fluent Spanish and fluent English.
But your family is from?
My parents are originally from Mexico.
Okay. Just trying to get that. We'll get back to that a little bit later. Let's go back to asbestos. I just thought, but like asbestos actually is originated in Mexico, right? Because it's asbestos.
Asbestos. It's pronounced the same, and there actually are mines located in Mexico that do produce asbestos. There's large ones in Canada. California had some before they shut down. Some in Mexico. It's actually found throughout the world in many different locations. And to this day, Russia still exports a bunch of it, and they use it internally. And not to be tragic in any sense, but this Ukrainian war is going to be disturbing and affecting a lot of asbestos, because of the nature of the recklessness that's going on. So I've actually started seeing little tidbits about that, on how there's going to be another generation of people who are exposed to asbestos-related diseases. But
Nice.
in this
Not
country,
nice, you know what I mean? Nice that you
yeah,
mentioned
I know
that.
what you mean. I
Aware
know
of
what
that.
you mean.
We had that
Yeah.
same situation on 9/11 with the Pentagon and with the Twin Towers. So much asbestos was put into the air, and it really has had that, and all the other terrible stuff that happened that then went out, has given long-term effects to so many people. Ironically, that asbestos was used to protect people against fire, and then have all these firemen that were heroes that did survive that day have suffered since then. Now, it's not like a regular disease, because it takes how long for someone to be affected by asbestos normally?
That's a very good question, Kelly. And I'm going to kind of segue into mold a little bit. Mold is a living component that if you inhale the mold spores, you can be affected almost relatively immediately, same day, if not shortly thereafter. But with asbestos, it has what's called a latency period, which means from the time of exposure to the time of being diagnosed with an asbestos-related disease can be anywhere from 10 to 40 years. Now, I started in 1984 when the industry was just starting off. And I'm 22 now, so it's pretty recent, but I still have medical examinations every year. And I'm in a good bill of health because we practiced good work practices. And, hats off to the gentleman who trained us back in I'm going to call them the old days, the good old days. But these were true journeymen, people that absolutely took pride in what they do. And that's not something you see every day. We're now coming into almost, I would call it a gentrification. A lot of the older property managers, contractors, they're getting ready to retire. They're moving on with their lives. And unfortunately, they're not passing on this new knowledge about materials that could be found in buildings. Because Kelly, we've been in business 22 years throughout South Florida, and we're going to be doing this for another 50, 60, 80 years. It's wow. Everywhere here in South Florida. And right. Now with unfortunate circumstances that happened, we have 40-year recertifications, and now they're mandating them to become more frequently and more thorough. And asbestos is a relative topic on all of these. And what we're trying to do is educate people, saying, listen, you may not have heard about it. Don't be under the illusion just because there's a late night commercial that you know everything about it. It's still present, it's still relevant, and it's still impacting us to this day.
As an owner's rep service, we've definitely keep engaged with you and other people in your industry, because it's extremely important to, whenever something's going on in a building, to make sure that first we check and see if it has asbestos, and if it does, it's removed properly to protect the residents. Because people that do it on the cheap, they don't realize how dangerous it is. And when they put it into the HVAC system, then you can affect the entire population. So I've been with you on your projects. The level of plastic and precautions and protection that your people wear, that you do for the entire buildings, it's incredible. And I know there's a lot between the mold and with the asbestos. The big difference is mold. Some people are highly allergic or can cause death. Some people could walk through mold and it's not going to affect them whatsoever. Asbestos can get everybody, and it has to be respected.
And it is a known carcinogen. I mean, it's a fact. We are federally regulated. The hoops that we have to go through and the entities that we have to notify is something that we also want to educate property managers on, construction managers, restoration contractors, to be aware that facilities can contain asbestos, because there's nothing worse than responding to an emergency that could have been avoided with just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of preparation.
Absolutely. And also board members. Let's remember, board members are the ones that are signing the checks, and we want them to be extremely aware how important this is, not only for them today, but down the road. Because you put this asbestos into your HVAC system, it's there for a long time.
Kelly, and being in the real world and the litigious world that it is, it really just takes one person to make a complaint before the ripples start going through. And, unfortunately, lives are affected, and attorneys make the most amount of money. And again, all of this is preventable. It's
Right.
the tragedy of my industry is that we're being hidden. It's kind of like we're in the closet, if I could use that term, and we're trying to get out of the closet and say, hey guys, this is still out there. It's still
Right.
relevant.
It's
And
still important.
yeah, we just want to just educate and make it work. And let's not be afraid of asbestos. It's not something to be afraid of. It is something to be respected. And, just like you are a professional in your industry, Kelly, I want to go to you and ask you for guidance and advice. And I heed those. I've been involved in Zoom meetings with you, and you've brought some very notable people from Behr Paints, restoration contractors, construction managers, and I've learned information from you guys. That doesn't mean that I know everything, but I've learned to respect my peers and my mentors. I mean, there's a wonderful lady, I hope I get her name right, Michelle Hastings. Talk about wanting to learn something from somebody, just listen to her and you'll be inspired by it. And I don't want to claim to know everything, but I'm proud to know that I know wonderful people that do know more than I do, and I respect them for it.
But you are have a phenomenal. It's not sexy. It's not exciting, but it's so important that people like you and your industry understand how to properly remove asbestos to protect the communities. It's just beyond valuable. And I know with your company's ECI, Environmental Control Industries. And I know that you brought Vanessa on recently. You're a family-owned company. She's part of the family, but she's also a marketing guru. Does she want to peek in and say hi real quick? Is she watching right now?
Yeah, come on over, Vanessa. You know what? I've got to include her. You're right, Kelly. We are a family-run business, and I couldn't do it without my family. They are what makes us who we are. Come on in. That's her.
Oh,
All
hello.
right, hey.
How are you?
Welcome.
But
Vanessa
you.
joined the team. Are you enjoying working with Roberto?
Yes, I mean, like I said before, to him, it's like I'm always gonna be part of the company, whether I'm here or not. Like I'm always part of the company. So it's a family business. So the plan is to make the business grow, assist in everything that we can assist with, and just be here.
I love putting you on the spot. I appreciate you coming up.
I know.
Because Robert didn't know I was going to do that, and Wayne didn't know that, but I
did. We're good now.
We're good now.
But your daughter-in-law is my niece. As far as I'm concerned, and she's wonderful. I enjoyed spending some time with her last week, and it's going to be fun to watch your business get bigger and bigger. Although you already have done some major places in South Florida. One of my favorites is you did a project over at NASA, correct? At least, or multiple projects?
I have done work at Cape Canaveral, actually on the Saturn V rocket. We helped remove some of the asbestos panels. Little interesting story. The Challenger explosion. That happened in, I believe, 83, 84. And at the time, 80 what?
86.
Wait, okay, 86.
Wow.
Thank you. It's been a long time ago. Well, at that time when the asbestos industry was coming out, the O-rings actually had asbestos in them, and it's an apocryphal story, which means that they're not sure if that's exactly what was the cause of it. But when they removed the asbestos out of those O-rings, because of the tremendous startup of those engines, that caused one of the O-rings to fail. Well, they could never define it as that, but they went ahead and put the asbestos back in, and we've never had any problems since. So yeah, it's a result of many things.
You worked at Cape Canaveral. I've mentioned to everybody on the planet that I've done several projects at the White House. Wayne, how about you? Have you done anywhere exciting and special?
Right off the top of the University of Southern Mississippi, we did as a result of Katrina. So yeah, I got that.
Okay, got a little heart tug there. We were involved with that. So yeah, that's it's not the White House or Cape Canaveral, but
So you guys are so Robert would be varsity, Kelly's JV, and I'm sophomore team. Is that how it's going to be ranked, or would we put the White House first? I'm going to put NASA first.
I don't know. I'd go with NASA first. I'd probably put you more as a freshman.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take it. Hey, at least you're
going to be our sophomore.
I'm just happy to graduate.
Right. You and me both.
Keeping in South Florida, tragedy that's spawned a lot of great things. Robert, you came here after a major storm, or isn't that what brought you?
Yeah, actually,
California?
California? Yeah, actually, California at the time was kind of going through a mini recession, and we had planned to come to here to Florida as my wife had a family member who was offering us a temporary place to reside. And the timing was just perfect. And we got here right after 2 weeks after Hurricane Andrew. So the moment I hit the ground in the state of Florida, we hit the ground running. And we just haven't looked back since. And, you know, we realized that the industry needed quality, competency, bilinguality, professionalism. And we just, you know, my father had this kind of logic that he gave me. He's like, you know, I don't know if you guys remember the Yugos.
Oh,
My-
yeah.
My college roommate had one.
Yeah.
I think they're more,
And my father
they're
was-
better as a doorstop than they are an actual mode of transportation.
Right?
Yeah, I've heard they stopped trains. But my father, you know, had suggested that when we came into the business, you know, don't sell Yugos, don't sell cheap, don't sell less than spectacular products, you know, sell a great service, sell professionalism, sell communication, sell a Mercedes. And, you know, so.
We like to say sell a Volvo around here, but
There you go. I'll take a Volvo. I'll take a Volvo. You know, it drives like a Mercedes. We deliver like a Mercedes, but at Volvo prices.
I don't know about that. You know, and
Right.
let's talk about that for a second, because you know, you have to rely on your people and they have to rely on you 100% of the time. Your team, I know you take very personal care of them. You care about them. They're just not employees. They're team members and
Family.
family members. And you have to pay them a fair wage to take care of their families. So you do have to charge a fair wage for your services. And they're fair. You know, it's extremely important for people to understand that, whether you're buying a fastener that helps with aluminum siding, or you're what's that called again? The Terminator.
Terminator clip. Yep.
Or you're providing services to people, you know, when they're doing a renovation, restoration, or beautification. This is almost like a commercial. And we don't do this too much, but it's kind of fun to change it up every week. Or what you're doing, which is removing out of buildings, as you know, a carcinogen. You have to spend all the money. You spend a fortune on plastic, and then you got to throw it all away, and you got to actually label it and package it and everything. It goes in a certain place in the landfill. There's so much detail for the protection and safety that it isn't peanuts, but it's worth every dime that you have to charge your clients. It's not like you're out there charging them a fortune, but there are a lot of steps that you have to take and a lot of money that has to be spent on labor and on administrative aspects to make each one of your projects go successful. And you don't have any room for error, you know, because you're really bringing it every single time when you're doing your job. When you're removing mold out of a building, once you remove it out of the building, you can dump it on the side of the road, no effect to anybody. But when you're doing it with asbestos, it's like you said, it's a carcinogen. I am also wondering that for anybody that's under the age of like 30 years old, they're probably going to have to Google what a Yugo is to see why we were laughing about Yugos and make the connection. So
Take one for a drive. You'll get it.
Right.
Can you take one for a drive?
Find one that's running.
I mean, you have to, what would you do? Drop like a Volkswagen engine in it to make it run? I mean, I don't know. What's the next step up, you know?
Flintstones brakes. That's all I can come up with, Kelly. They're just
Right. Now, speaking of brakes, a lot of asbestos was used in brakes. And unfortunately, so a lot of mechanics later in life suffered from mesothelioma. I can't say it. As a result of working on vehicles and working on brakes. I mean, they just had no idea at the time what they were doing to themselves. And they would breathe it in all the time. And unfortunately, that's why those attorneys are going after people now. Not unfortunately, but it seems like a scam, but it's not. People really did shorten their lives because of the effect that they had with asbestos. And
absolutely.
the fact that you're trying to eliminate that in South Florida, I think is admirable.
I appreciate that. We are a heavily regulated industry that, we can get fined for any number of steps by just having visible debris outside, not wearing a respirator. And mind you, our work areas are quite hot. I mean, we're working in buildings with no air conditioning. You have all the plastic, all the locations are sealed up, vents, doors, windows. You're in a suit and respirator. The temperatures can easily approach 100 degrees. And, we appreciate our technicians, and we treat them with dignity and respect. And, it's not grunt work. Thank you. Stay hydrated, homie. And unfortunately, there's
Well,
a
that's something that
misconception.
you provide a ton of water on your job sites, correct?
Absolutely. Water, Gatorades, coconut water. I mean, we strongly encourage hydrations, and we train our supervisors to monitor the technicians, because sometimes they lose track of time, and then it's almost, in a work area, and they just want to get done and get home. But we have to monitor and make sure that, they're drinking adequate water, they're taking adequate breaks. And that, we're in South Florida, 100% humidity. That adds time to it. And, to do it fast and cheap is not something that's in our vocabulary. We want it done right the first time, because liability is a very, very strong and powerful word in our industry. And, knock on wood, in the 22 years of business, we've never had a litigation. And we take the time to prepare, to educate, to plan, so that it's done right the first time. I mean, we're going into buildings where there's people that the mere mention of the word asbestos can cause, pandemonium, panic, and have news stations run out there. So we have to be very surgical and plan properly and disclose to the right people, and just give enough knowledge to where people are aware of what our intentions are to do it safe. But I mean, sometimes we'll do full hallways in condominiums because they're installing sprinklers for a new 40-year certification, and you got to have tenants out for an entire day. I mean, this is very strategic, very, precision type work. And, I'm proud of the technicians that we have and the team that we have, because they do it day in and day out. But you're right, Kelly, if we take very good care of them, they're going to want to continue to do a good and quality job.
Right. But it really isn't your average job, and it is in a fun construction term. You are the unknown and unsung superheroes of protecting people.
Absolutely.
And you are, so you're a fun guy, and I mean, you really are one of the funniest people I know. But when you're at work, you are intense. You are very serious about the safety, and it's been that for the years that I've known you. It's not like it's an act, and it takes passionate people that really want to do the right thing 100% of the time, because you just don't have that room for leeway. If I'm out golfing, I could hit 50 bad shots, and I hit a good shot, and I've had a good day. I can, as a baseball player, you can go out and strike out 2 out of 3 times and still command a multiple $1 million, income. In your job, in your field, and what you're doing with your team, you've got to be on it 100% of the time. There just is no room for mistake and error, and it's just admirable, and it's nice to be able to recognize you for what you do day in and day out.
Thank you, Kelly. And I'd like to say we try as best as we can.
As best as we can. Did you really just say that? Okay, next we're going to have the paving lady, and she says if you don't take care of your driveway, it's your own asphalt. So
that's right. And Don knows what she's talking about.
Shout out to Don Miller.
That's right.
Don's awesome. Don is awesome.
Yeah.
I brought you up, Don. I brought you up if you're watching.
Oh, so we're going to wrap it up because we only got about a minute to go, and time goes so quick. But I'm honored to call you a friend. I'm honored to have you in our industry. I'm glad that you're one of the people that we can call to when we've got a project that's involving asbestos or mold. One more time, it's what's the name of your company?
Environmental Control Industries.
And Robert Lozano can be contacted on LinkedIn, and hook up with him, and then he will make sure your building's safe. And
we just want to.
And anything, any closing remarks by you, Wayne? Is your name?
Yeah, I do have one quick question for Robert.
We're out of time. No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
What would the exposure period that the average person would need to be worried about getting that dreaded what was it, mesothelioma or whatever?
Mesothelioma, mesothelioma. Wayne, that's actually a very, very good question. As to this day, scientists are not aware whether it's a one-time exposure or an exposure over time. But obviously, the exposure over time greatly increases your chances of it. I mean, a housewife who was dusting off her husband's clothing, who came from work, wouldn't be exposed as much as her husband would in the day, but those small little incremental exposures could, cause a related disease. And believe it or not, asbestos is still out there, Kelly, still out there. And, it's still being imported into this country. Yep, your place has
Right.
it.
Mesothelioma.
Yes, well, Kelly, that's like, that's like, the name that should not be mentioned, but yes, you're right. I'll whisper it into your ear.
That's the one time I'm going to be able to say it correctly. So, but hey, we're going to have to bring you back on, talk more about it. It's a
Love
deep
to.
dive on what we can talk about. We can maybe do some pictures. You got some terrible pictures of what it looks like when people are affected, but we appreciate your time.
Yes.
We appreciate what you do. Wayne, we love you up there in the north. Can't wait to have you down here in the fall. And we'll see everybody next week.
Oh, man, I was
Thanks,
hoping to give a
everybody.
real quick shout out. Just a
Go
quick
ahead.
shout out.
Oh my,
Oh, come on, it's important, Kelly.
this
These
is my
people in my
best
life. I wanna thank-
closing ever.
I not yet. I want to thank my wife, my family, my support, Michelle, Diane, Monica, John, Peggy, Priscilla, Odellis, restoration experts. They're cool. Everybody who goes to the Beachcomber. And I want to thank some sponsors. We actually have a company called Deep Breath. It's the maker of fine office and car deodorizers, now with three fragrances: chrysotile, amosite, and mesothelioma. So we're also working on children's scratch and stiff stickers, but that's still a work in progress.
That's killer, dude.
Oh, I got such a funny joke. I'm not going to say it, but
I'm done.
that was the best close we've done so far.
It was.
So love you guys. You have a great
You're the
rest
best.
of the week.